Tired of shoes that don't quite fit right? New Mexico Shoes has a solution. Introducing our custom insoles and arch supports made just for you and ready the same day right here in Albuquerque. Perfectly tailored to your feet, enjoy the comfort and support you need. And while you're here, explore a huge selection of top brands. From casual to athletic, we've got the perfect pair waiting for you. Visit NewMexicoShoes.com for hours and location details. All right, welcome back to episode 10 of Rider's Block. I'm your host, Journal staff writer Sean Reider. We are coming off New Mexico's 61-39 loss to number 20. I think that's what they're ranked in the new AP poll this week. Arizona. UNM is now 0-2 as they enter their first bye week of the season. They actually get 3. So it's this current week that we're recording, the week of October 5th, that's Saturday, and then November 23rd. Which is right before their season finale at Hawaii. So we don't have a regular guest that we normally would this week in terms of talking to another beat writer, another reporter about an upcoming opponent. But we did want to share a live show that we did, me and Geoff Grammer, after Bronco Mendenhall's kind of bye week presser this last Monday on Labor Day. Thought we did a good job kind of recapping what Bronco talked about that day, what kind of the mood was for the team and the like. After the Arizona game and what they're kind of looking at in terms of the bye week, in terms of getting rest and conditioning, and also kind of turning the page over to their next game at Auburn on September 14th. So without any further ado, here is a chat from this last Monday with me and Geoff Grammer after Bronco Mendenhall's weekly press conference.
What's up, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal. I am joined, as always, by Sean Reider, who is the football beat writer for the Journal. Sean, welcome to our Monday bye week episode.
Jeff, it is always a pleasure to be on Albuquerque Journal Sports Live, especially during the Monday bye week episode.
I don't know if there's a more exciting time to talk college football when you're covering a team than the Monday when they don't play for about 14 days almost. So let's jump into this exciting time. First of all, how was the old Pueblo? How was the drive down to Tucson and back? What did you think of Tucson?
The drive there was great, really enjoyable. The drive yesterday was terrible. I was pretty tired, to be honest with you. I
was going to say that's what staying up till 2 to do a post game show before you start your actual story. That's what that'll do.
That was rough. That was I did not feel well upon arrival back in Albuquerque last night. Although it's good to be back in Albuquerque. No, I really like Tucson, man. I think I kind of covered it during the show after the game. But no, I mean, Arizona, it's a really cool campus, really cool school, cool town. Didn't go out really much at all, to be honest with you, but definitely like what I saw. It was cool.
All right, let's get to the game. The Lobos are in a weird position where the whole country just got done with their first weekend, the official week 1 of college football. But the Lobos are 0-2, and one game that they feel they had every opportunity to win, and one game that surprisingly they probably were in more than most people would have given them credit or predicted they would have been in on Saturday at Arizona heading into the season. So where do the Lobos stand kind of mentally? What are your thoughts on the Lobos? And then tell us kind of what Bronco's message, Bronco Mendenhall today did have his regular weekly coaches press conference despite the bye week. Tell us what Bronco's thoughts were. So a lot in there, but your thoughts and kind of where they are at 0-2 this early in the season.
Yeah, where they are at 0-2, I think record-wise, it's expected, right? You know, I mean, Montana State, everybody kind of knew that was one of the harder FCS opponents you could schedule. You could have on schedule, and then Arizona, after the year that they had last year, who I think is a good head coach in place of Jed Fish. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was kind of expecting the 0-2. I don't think everybody was expecting this kind of feeling where it's, oh, wow, like this doesn't quite feel like the start of a rebuild in the sense of, you know, you're kind of watching a product very slowly and meticulously develop. It feels like, hey, they've really competed in these first 2 games, although it has not been flawless by any stretch of the imagination in terms of offense, defense, and some special teams as well. Definitely a ton to work on, and that's something that Bronco Mendenhall talked about today during his press conference. It wasn't a long press conference because it is a bye week, and you're not looking forward to another opponent or asking him about that. But that was kind of the general tone that he had during the press conference. Really, he led off with, I like where we're at. I like the again, still need to see way more consistency and need to see things ironed out on the back end defensively. Obviously, if you didn't watch Arizona's game or you don't remember the statistics, probably All-American receiver Tetero McMillan for Arizona set a school record of 304 receiving yards, added 4 touchdowns. That was on 10 receptions. That's also a program record for UNM in terms of receiving yards allowed in a single game. He's a tremendous talent, and Mendenhall gave credit, but one of the things he pointed towards when I asked him about, kind of those breakdowns is that, what they were doing up front was not matching the coverage that they had. If they were sending a 6-man pressures, the coverage in the back end was not matched up. They were sending 4-man pressures, the coverage sometimes was not matched up with that front, and that led to some breakdowns, and also the fact that, hey, McMillan's a phenomenal receiver. If you put him in a position to make a play, he will make a play.
I'll add to that real quick, because it was somewhat frustrating, I imagine, for fans, but it was perplexing for me watching, kind of wondering why even well into the third quarter you're still having him catch so many passes with space. There it didn't appear. Don't take those watching or listening in like as a overly harsh critique of the coaching, because I don't know what they were doing. As he was saying, as you were just saying, Sean, the obviously what they were doing up front wasn't matching how they were defending it in the back end, and there were some mix-ups there. But it is hard when you're watching a guy just go off for a career night like that, how he's still so open on catch 7, 8, 9, and 10. He had 10 receptions for 304 yards. Like I'm just wondering why it appeared as though there weren't adjustments being made. But it sounds like maybe there was more. It wasn't so much that there weren't adjustments being made. It's that there was some confusion as to getting the secondary and the defensive front on the same page on some of what they were trying to do.
And also, and this is, Paco pointed out too, Arizona did do a really good job of moving him around consistently. McMillan probably should have had 6 TDs. One of them I think was, if I remember correctly, I have not watched this game back entirely. So I'll put that in there right now. But one of them was called back. And then there was one where he was probably just about as open as he was on his first TD, where Pierre Camini Jr., the cornerback, fell down early in the play. He was just about as open. This was in the third quarter, I want to say. Okiki Olaronfunmi, who is a big defensive end, big edge rusher, just not a guy that you really want lined up on a guy like McMillan prior, and he kind of streaked right by him. Fafita, play did not go that direction. Fafita ended up throwing a screen on that play. And that was a little bit due to some of the pressure that UNM was bringing there, so it kind of that was a breakdown waiting to happen for another TD, and that very easily could have pushed that into near 70 burger territory for UNM.
Well, I want to go over a couple individuals. Devin Dampier's kind of, if for some people it was his coming out party because it was a game on ESPN. For others, they kind of knew this was coming and maybe were a little more expectant of something like this. I want to get to that in a minute. Before I forget, though, on the defensive side, because it's a guy who at times has struggled a little bit, and I think people maybe expected quite a bit out of. And on Saturday, he showed up. He had a hell of a game on defense, and that's Noah Pola Gates. Had himself a heck of a game. Why was he in that position to have that much of a, I guess, say in the game? And what do you think about the performance he had?
Yeah, and I'll lead off. Not struggled at times. I mean, the opener last year against Texas A&M, he had those really critical DPIs that really hurt UNM in that instance. He entered that game as a starter, and he's been very candid about the fact that he was the most penalized player in college football last year. He was the most penalized DB, and that that made him largely, in some ways, kind of unplayable down the stretch of last season. And I think we don't know for sure because Bronco doesn't talk about injuries in the way that other coaches do. We asked him about injuries today. He declined to really comment. And he offered the fact that he probably knows as much as we do, in the sense that he hasn't talked with the trainers at this point in the week. But yeah, Cam Watts, who's in the secondary. Cam Watts got banged up, I think, on the very first play. He ended up playing only 5 snaps, I'm pretty sure, against Arizona. I believe Pierre Camini Jr., who also, I think he got banged up too on that first drive when he fell against McMillan on that TD. I think he only played 2 snaps, I should say. And then Nigel Williams, another guy that can play corner for UNM. I think he's banged up as well. And he played about the same number of snaps, I think, as Camini. So injuries really kind of put Noah Poole-Gates in a position to play a good deal against Arizona. And he played really well. That's far and away his best game that he's had since coming in from Nebraska. He transferred in during last offseason. He had those 2 third down PBUs. He was incredibly aggressive. That's something that Bronco talked about today and on Saturday a little bit too. And that's what you want to see out of a corner. Really, he made a play. I think one of those PBUs was on McMillan. He had a PBU that led to the kind of tipped interception that Christian Ellis ended up getting, and that was a big play in the game as well. And Bronco was kind of today, just kind of glowing while talking about him. Just like, it's really cool to see a guy fight for time to come out and make the absolute most of his opportunity at a time when the team needed him. And I think it's in the sense of the program, this is something that Bronco kind of talks about with individual guys sometimes. I think it is encouraging to see that. I think how competitive this team was going to be this year was always going to be both about who they could bring in via the portal, and they brought in some good players via the portal, don't get me wrong, but also a huge part of, can you get guys that were already there? Can you get them to buy in and develop them even further? And if you're getting play like this out of Noah Poole-Gates consistently throughout the season, that gives you a really good shot to, if you're getting developing guys like that who were there before, that gives you a phenomenal shot to be really competitive against anybody that you play.
Well, that's a whole lot of real estate we just gave to a defensive player in a game that the Lobos did allow a 400-yard passer, a 300-yard receiver, 600-plus total yards of offense, and 61 points. So while he is very deserving of that, and that is why I brought that up, the defense for the second straight week, and I do ask anybody watching along, you got comments or if you have questions for Sean and about Lobo football, send them in. You can sit there and reply in the chat on the YouTube page, or if you have opened the video on X, you can reply to the link there. So look, the defense struggled overall, and I would say that the second half, fourth quarter in particular, against Montana State, they struggled. So while they did have 2 defensive scores early on, and while I would still think that overall the identity of a Bronco Mendenhall program is probably going to be a little more leaning towards the toughness and leaning towards the defensive side, I wouldn't say that overall I've been overly impressed with what has happened on defense so far. And what can you say about whether or not this defense is going to get a little better? You can't give up that many rushing yards in one game and then that many passing yards in the next game and have a whole lot of optimism, I would think. But what can they do to sort of shore things up on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think the identity of Bronco Mendenhall teams are, as a whole, whether you're offense or defense, they're just like total effort. Like, I think that's the thing you kind of hear the most, just absolute unending, undying effort. If a play goes wrong, a play goes wrong. But if you're giving 100% effort, that's just kind of that. And I think you're seeing that effort. I don't want to say that players are uncomfortable in the schemes at large. It's just taking more time to settle in. I don't know, more time. I think maybe I can't say that they weren't expecting this amount of time to kind of settle into the scheme in terms of actual live game reps against different opponents. And I think it certainly doesn't quite help that your first 2 opponents are really good offensive teams. Montana State, their calling card forever has been their run game. I mean, they were one of the best rushing teams in the country last year, and they've always been a great rushing program going back to when Jeff Choate got them going before Brent Vigen was the head coach. And then Arizona is phenomenal. At quarterback, McMillan. I mean, that's just a weapon that you can get the absolute most out of. But it just kind of feels like, to a certain degree, that like when you're talking to players, you get about the Montana State game, and you talk to coaches, they would say it was like we were consistently one gap off, and Montana State kept finding that gap and exploiting it and exploiting it and exploiting it. And then you talk to Bronco today about the Arizona game, and he's talking about how the fronts aren't matched up to the coverage, and they're moving McMillan around. And when you have a guy like McMillan, that tremendous length, he's 6'5", really long wingspan, really long catch radius and all that. Yeah, that's easier to exploit than if you didn't have that guy. And I think you're seeing the effort, and I think that's big. I think like Noah Pulley-Gates is a really good example of that. But like it's kind of weird. Like I think like you're not like willing to like totally sit down and be like, this defense is not going to get better. This defense is wrecked. I think it's a more talented defense than last year, and you kind of see the vision overall to it being a cohesive product, and honestly more than it was at certain points last year. But yeah, like improvement is absolutely necessary. I mean, like, well, we're looking at net rushing yards for Arizona. It really only felt me they ran the ball like 5 times in the first half, if even that. And then they really, I mean, they started running it more and more and more to kind of take time down. They got a little bit more going with that offensive line. It's kind of a new look offensive line for Arizona, but yeah, the swings back and forth just kind of shows me that it's going to take a little bit of time for them to settle into this scheme. That's a really long-winded answer. I hope that made a little bit of sense. But
it does. But it's something you said early on in that answer is like they have faced 2 really good offenses. Now they're going to face more offenses that are pretty good too down the stretch. Is there anything that you've seen though defensively that has surprised you in terms of players? Maybe it was Gates on Saturday, but like anybody that either maybe hasn't yet stepped forward, like you think they still might, or anybody that has surprised you that's played really well that you weren't really expecting that out of them?
Gates is surprising. Most of this defense, to be honest, in terms of the personnel, in terms of like starting guys, you kind of had a good idea that they were going to play a big role going throughout the season, and at least the start of the season before, the injuries set and all that. I thought Mosa Tuitele, I thought he played pretty well against Arizona, being honest. And he played more than he did against Montana State. He was a guy that played a lot off the edge in the spring. He's a Cal transfer. He played a little bit of tight end and also as an edge rusher at Cal, but didn't seem like 95% sure. I'd have to probably double check that, but I don't think he saw any live game reps inside special teams. And he was a guy that Jan Jorgensen, who was a BYU legend, I think he still has like the Mountain West career sacks record. He's the edges coach at UNM now. He's the guy that he pointed to Mozo when I was talking to him during fall camp, and he's like, that's a guy that we think can play a really big role throughout this season. But like it's just going to be a matter of consistency and all that. And Bronco and I asked Bronco today about Mozo, and Bronco said like he's a really good example of just a guy that is kind of developing that day-by-day consistency and is just kind of continually carving it out more. So I think to kind of see that is encouraging in the sense that if you're a UNM fan, you knew that this group of edge rushers was honestly not a really deep room in terms of game experience. Gabe Lopez, who's listed as a linebacker on the 2 deep, but is, basically an edge rusher by position. He's the only guy that has a lot of game reps, honestly. To see a guy start to kind of, take a big stride from 1 week to the next, I think is pretty encouraging if you're a UNM fan.
Let's move forward to some Devin Dampier. His 5 touchdowns, obviously huge game, passing, rushing, everything. What impressed me, even though, I've been a believer in him since last year, you could kind of see that he was going to be the guy. And I'll take a coach's word for it when he glows about a player as much as Bronco has on Devin Dampier and the whole, when you got a quarterback, you got a chance kind of stance that he's taken. That said, I'll tell you what I was most impressed about is his poise and his ability to move the chains in key situations, not rely just on his feet, in a tough situation, just thinking, okay, I got to go do it myself. He would stay in the pocket at times. He took hits. He was throwing bullets. He was throwing strikes downfield. He was making a lot of smart plays that a sophomore, first time full-time starter. I know he kind of started playing there towards the end last year, but he was doing a lot of things that were really impressive that you expect out of a second or third year quarterback. And it's what everyone's been saying about him. Like that is who he is. It just takes time, I guess, to convince some people. And while I was a believer, I guess, like I'm more of a believer now because I thought it wasn't just his final stat line and 5 touchdowns. It was the fact that he did it in a way that looked like a mature veteran player. And I guess what would you say about his performance Saturday and what Broncos said about it today?
As a tangent, I don't know if there was that many Devin Dampier, non-believers out there, to be completely honest with you. Like I do remember like getting calls and emails last year. Like why is Dylan Hopkins still starting? Why isn't Dampier starting? I remember, and honestly, probably I'll eat crow. I was probably wrong at a certain point. I was like, why would you kind of throw in a true freshman who has the talent and has the skill, but like maybe isn't ready for that game experience? Why would you throw him into the Wolves when you do kind of have a redshirt senior who, is really experienced at that level? And I probably was wrong, honestly. I've seen that, seen what Devin did in his first career start last year at Boise. Obviously, that was really lopsided score, but it was pretty impressive how he played in what was essentially a blowout loss. But yeah, I mean, I think he kind of hit it the nail on the head, and I think the number one term for Devin right now it's poise. A ton of poise as a passer. Still some things to clean up. That first interception he threw when he kind of over scrambled and just kind of tried to force it in, and there really was nothing there for it. That's a mistake that you kind of can't make, but that's a mistake that I think you can honestly pretty easily eliminate. And just make sure, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to take that hit right there and just kind of call it. And yeah, he did a tremendous job with his legs in terms of finding the edge. I've been seeing a lot of Arizona fans actually kind of really concerned about that and kind of like harping on defensive coordinator Dwayne Akina to kind of get that cleaned up. And I think that's totally fair as well. But yeah, Devin found that edge and he made the most of it.
You're talking about his legs there a little bit and him running. I had asked you after the Montana State loss. I think I told you that I was a little surprised that they didn't get him out running a little more. They had the naked boot, obviously, which was sort of a trick play, right? And I don't know if a bootleg is entirely a trick play, but that was a unique kind of, I don't want to say gimmicky, but a unique playbook kind of call there. And other than that, against Montana State, I don't recall Devin really being used as a runner as much, and I didn't know if that was preservation. He's so valuable that you don't want him to get out and run, but maybe they should have done it a little more against Montana State. But I thought they got him out. They moved the pocket a little bit. He was rolling out. He was doing some things with his legs this game that I thought were an improvement or an opening of the playbook a little bit that they didn't do in the first week. Maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know, but it did seem like it was a concerted, different plan of attack as far as the legs go for Devin.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a different plan. I wouldn't say it was like it was different, but I wouldn't say it was like an opening of the playbook in maybe a more traditional sense. I think one of the things you've consistently heard from Devin and a little bit from offensive coordinator Jason Beck, who I would like to try and talk to again soon here, is just kind of, and honestly, you heard the same thing from offensive coordinator Brian Vitzel last year. It's, as an offense, defense gives you. The defense that Montana State was running was not giving Devin a lot of opportunities to go for it. And I think that's something that in terms of Montana State evaluating a new offense with with a lot of new personnel, with maybe the exception of Devin, I think you're kind of looking and being like, all right, well, this guy ran a good deal last year. We don't want him to run against us. We want to have him beat us with his arm and all that. Whereas Arizona, I don't know if they were that totally concerned with his legs, to be honest with you. I think they were wanting to beat him more as a passer and beat him with pressure, and they sent pressure. And Devin's poise was good. Devin didn't always hold up great against the pressure. But that's also, some of that is just, kind of the mismatch in terms of what Arizona was bringing. And they also rotated a ton of defensive linemen. I mean, a ton.
Yeah.
They did it a lot last year, but during the game, I was like up in the press box, like, oh my God, this is a lot of guys. And I haven't even gone through Snapcats for them yet. But I think it was a different game plan for what Arizona was doing defensively, and UNM certainly made him pay with Dampier's legs. Not enough to win, but they made him pay.
Well, a lot of Devin in this stat here, but again, it's the stat that I screwed up post game of the Montana State game. But I'm looking at the big plays just on Stat Broadcast, and New Mexico's offense against a nationally ranked team and against a Big 12 team and an Arizona team and all this stuff a week after they didn't do anything really in the second half offensively against Montana State. 5 big plays passing wise. They consider big plays for passing 15 yards plus, 10 yards plus on the running side, and they had 9. So, you're putting together 14, what the stat sheet considers big plays. That's a hell of an offensive game that you just put together against a nationally ranked team. All kinds of optimism about this offense, I would think, going into the rest of the season at this point. And frankly, I think the offense has looked a little better overall. I think they've played 3 out of 4 good halves, but I would say overall, the 2 games in, I would say this offense is better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and it always, what's kind of surprised me about the offense is that, it feels like it's at a pretty good level right now. I always felt that it was going to be boosted up by, just simply the versatility of the personnel that they had, right? Like, it felt like at the end of camp that Eli Sanders was going to be the lead back, but then you were going to have, Javen Jacobs come in and do some stuff, and Andrew Henry was going to come in and do some stuff, and then still J. Maeva-Peters, he might have a package, and he might be able to do something. And the wide receivers too, I felt like it was going to be more balanced in terms of targets and stuff like that. And that's with the full understanding that the flow of the game kind of dictates a lot of that stuff. And it hasn't been it has been personnel has been more personnel focused than I probably figured. It has been a lot more Eli Sanders. After they kind of went through fall camp with the thing like, oh yeah, we're going to find a way to use every single running back. And they haven't. I mean, it's been Eli, Javen, and Nakari Rogers. It's been Eli by a pretty large margin in terms of usage at this point, in terms of like offensive snaps and all that. But it still worked well. I think the thing there, it's something that I asked Bronco on Saturday was, it feels like, you're still going to need to find ways to, whether it's something really intentional in the flow of the game or in game planning and stuff like that, like to find ways to get, Caleb Medford reliably involved and find ways to connect with Nick Trujillo on more downfield shots. It feels like that element of the offense is still needed, while totally recognizing that the job that Luke Weissong and Ryan Davis have done so far has been really, really good. I mean, they've done a really good job. Weissong in particular, another career game for him, back-to-back, career best games for him. And then Sean Miller too, getting him more involved as well. I like what they've done with Trace Bruckler. I think Bruckler's always been a good pass catcher. I was surprised how kind of underutilized he was to a certain degree last year as a pass catcher. And some of that was the fact that tight end room last year was so banged up pretty much from the start to finish of the season. And he had to carry a huge weight. I don't know if it would have benefited him to, splitting out and not splitting out, but, kind of going out for passes a whole lot. But, I think overall, I mean, it feels like the offense is a good level right now, but it feels like there's more on the table for them to kind of go. And on the point of, a nationally ranked Arizona team, it might have gotten a little contentious during the press conference today when Bronco said to us, with me in attendance, an Associated Poll top 25 voter, that I believe he said the polls don't matter until about week 8 or 9. And let me tell you, I think a preseason poll might be that's a big deal. That's a big deal to me. So that's the sanctity of the poll we're talking about.
You can follow all of Sean's voting on collegepolltracker.com. And I am pulling up the AP Top 25 poll right now. Let's see. This is still the preseason poll they have up. When's this week's poll coming out?
I get it filed later today, so it'll be out tomorrow.
All right.
Labor Day. Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, normally those come out on Sundays. Anyway, I'm going to make one last comment, and then we're going to kind of spin this forward and look ahead of what the Lobos have going. But I noted this after the game the other day. Here we go. The Lobos allowed 275 yards after catch. I'm curious how much of that was just because a few of those were big plays, obviously. But how much of that is a concern in terms of not being able to keep some plays in front of you, not being able to maybe wrap up? How many of those would you say were broken tackles? That's a whole hell of a lot of yards of yards after catch in one game, 275. So I'm curious what to make of that. Is that just a byproduct of an All-American receiver having a career night, or should we be worried that this team isn't the best tackling team?
I'm inclined to say that it's more of a product of going up against an All-American receiver. But if you watched Arizona, I mean, I wouldn't say it was like a horrible tackling performance in the sense of like I remember UNM's game against Wyoming last year. That was a really bad tackling performance. That they lost that game on tackling. Essentially, they put themselves in a hole because they could not tackle. And we are talking Ice Baby more about the Lobo defense, which I'm sure everybody's thrilled about right now. I think it's a mix of you're going up against an All-American receiver. Tackling is maybe a touch overzealous to a certain degree. And not quite hitting home, but you can work on tackling though. So,
all right. Obviously, moving forward, then as we sort of spin this ahead, it is a bye week for the Lobos. Their next game at Auburn, they get a Fresno State game. They got a rivalry game coming up with New Mexico State. I don't know who this guy is. Some guy named Lucas Pierman has a question. Says basically moving forward, when do the Lobos get their first win? When do they win their first game this season? Obviously, I think the obvious best chance would be the New Mexico State game. But what are the odds of them maybe getting something before then? But also, they're not going to get many wins if they're going to give up a rushing game like they did against Montana State, and if they're going to give up a passing game against Arizona. But I don't know that any of the teams coming up have that one-sided sort of, part of their game, the way Montana State's rushing attack can get going and the way Arizona's quarterback receiver combo got going. So what do you think? Can this team win in the next few games?
Yeah, I think they can. Right now I am inclined, and I will say that I have not watched the entire New Mexico State game that they played against SEMO on Saturday. I need to sit down and watch that all the way through this week. I don't know if I'm actually looking forward to that, but
win of the Tony Sanchez era worth noting.
Win of the Tony Sanchez era. New Mexico State, was trailing for a good deal from what I kind of saw, and they
trailed until that final touchdown. They trailed or didn't have a lead until that final. They were tied a couple times, but they did not have a lead until that final touchdown. And you can't spin it any other way than it wasn't a great game, but it was a win. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? We're sitting here being pretty rosy about an 0-2 Lobo team. And meanwhile, down the road, a 1-0 Aggie team sitting there with a win, even though they didn't play that good. And I know a whole lot of coaches that'll take a win, even though they aren't exactly happy with how they perform. So spin that however you want.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, to say it has a better record than UNM, and I mean, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Being completely honest with you, we can talk about it as much as we want, but you're probably inclined to say New Mexico State, and that's not me saying that I think New Mexico State is going to perform on a week-to-week basis like they did every single week against SEMO. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that with the offensive staff that they have right now, I think they'll find a way to get into more of a rhythm. the stuff I'm hearing about the defense and the stuff I remember about seeing from the defense in the spring certainly gives me cause to be, I don't know about fully optimistic, but it's going to be a pretty comprehensive product there. But I am really, really curious about this Fresno State game. I thought Fresno State wasn't able to watch all of it, but I was really impressed with what they did against Michigan. I mean, they made that a one-score game pretty late there. Look, I mean, I know it's I know they don't quite have a Tennessee Roy McMillan, but they do have Jalen Moss at receiver, and Moss is really, really good. And Mikey Keene is phenomenal. If you watched last year's New Mexico Bowl, you know how good Mikey Keene can be. UNM honestly dodged a bullet when they played him last year and beat him because they did not play Mikey Keene or a healthy Mikey Keene. Yeah. So to have him kind of come back to University Stadium, a place where he's been really successful, at least like in his one appearance here. Yeah, I think, I'd probably lean more Fresno State at this point, if only because you haven't seen really enough out of UNM's defense to believe that they could be able to totally shut that attack down. I think more with Fresno State for sure. So, yeah, I would probably say New Mexico State, but I'm very excited for that Fresno State game. I think it's going to be really competitive, and I think it's going to be a really good game.
And so fans that or people watching right now that are looking, their next 4 games, just to be very clear, at Auburn next Saturday. They are once again, they're on a bye this week. At home against Fresno State. That is the homecoming game on September 21st. Then September 28th at New Mexico State. Then you got another league game, a home game against an Air Force team that Air Force is what it is. It's hard to read into their scores sometimes. Didn't look entirely dominant against an FCS school over the weekend, but they pitched a shutout to the final game, so their defense apparently was dominant, but they only put up 21 points offensively. So, excuse me, you're saying New Mexico State's the best chance of those next 4, obviously, but you're not eliminating any hope for a Fresno State win, huh?
Not, I think New Mexico, what they have offensively right now, definitely has the tools to be the tools and personality. Wow, tools and personnel. Golly, to be competitive against Fresno State. Auburn, we'll see what happens. I'm going to be kind of diving a little bit more into what Auburn is up to this year in terms of personnel and all of that. I feel like we have a good beat on what they do scheme wise. It's Hugh Freeze, man. Let's rip Hugh Freeze from Peyton Thorne, but I don't know. It just seems like that's probably going to be a much bigger physical mismatch than anything else on the schedule. So, what is True Match?
Yeah, True TV. It's True TV. We got another.
Oh, the HBO Max thing. Yeah,
that's HBO Max. Is their streaming service, or you can watch it on True TV, and you will start seeing more True TV appearances in college sports broadcasting. So you're starting to see it everywhere, right? I mean, we're in the era where everyone said cable costs are getting too much, so let's cut the cable, and now you got to have 18 different streaming services to get all the games. But
speaking of Auburn, you should have seen me when I was on the road yesterday, and I was about 2 hours in, and I stopped at a Love's, and I got a bottle of water, and I checked my phone, and I was like, oh, the lines for week 2 are out, and I spent, no joke, 6 minutes looking for the Auburn, New Mexico State. So, the Auburn, New Mexico line, because I just did not remember that there was a bye week this week. So
that's good. He's not the best beat writer in the Mountain West for nothing, folks. He may have skipped his little mind there that the team he covers doesn't actually play this week. But hey, what would probably help you with that? They say blueberries are a good brain food. They make you think, help the brain. So grapes, blueberries, might I recommend some of those at some point? Have you since our last show, have you had a grape? Have you had a blueberry?
What do you think, Jeff? Our last show was Saturday, so you really have like a day and a morning to do you think I stopped like in
at Love's
like at truck stop? Like I went to Hatch and I was like on the way back, like, hey, like I need a couple grapes. Hook me up.
I'm curious if any
give me some grapes.
All right, what's it going to take to get some grapes or some blueberries into Sean Reider's system this season?
I don't know. Probably a significant other telling me to eat them. That's probably what it ends up being.
Is that where you want me to start taking the show now? Is The Bachelor, and we can
No, not that. But that probably will be the that probably will be it. I think we have a good comment on this actually that we can bring to the screen that I like.
Which one here? All right, here we go.
Yeah, I like this as being like kind of a prop bet here. Like, do I have a grape before Air Force? Do I have a blueberry before San Diego State? I kind of like this as a prop betting opportunity.
We can make this happen. We can keep this a thing and keep it going all season long, because look, your fans want to know, man. This is big time stuff. So,
do I have an apple at any point in the season?
So you've had apple slices and pieces of apple like in food before, but Sean has never taken a bite out of an apple.
Yeah, never had apple pie either. I think I've had apple slices like once, man. Like
okay, but you've had them, but like you've never had apple pie. Again,
I don't really like pie to begin with. Like I'm not a
we don't
pie.
we don't have to rehash the whole show from a week ago, but I have it on good authority that growing up in the household in Michigan, this was all available to you, and you chose for some weird reason not to have grapes, not to have blueberries, even though you went blueberry picking with the family. So very good authority, an anonymous source, not anonymous, but an unnamed source. I refuse to name the source of this information. But she says that she provided this all growing up for Sean, and it didn't happen. So, all right, man, let's talk what you expect the Lobos to do in this bye week, or what Bronco expects in this bye week. Is this a situation this early in the season where he gives them a bunch of time off, gives them some days off? Are they already hurt enough where they need the time off? It is only, it's week 1 of the college football season. So I am curious. All right. Just since we don't want to jump topics too much, but the apple's got to be the Washington State. If you don't have an apple by the Washington State game, that would certainly be seems like a pretty worthy game to try an apple.
That's almost Washington State is almost where I went to school. That kind of have a little bit of that might play. I kind of like that.
All right,
classic game.
All right, so what's Broncos' take on a bye week being this early in the season? They have 3 of them this year, which is just a weird schedule. Though overall, the Lobos schedule is not a forgiving one. It's not a good one, frankly. It's hard to get fans going when you have so few home games. It's really tough, and there's some kind of awkwardly placed bye games. And it is, at this point, it is what it is. Right? They can't change it. But what do you do with the bye week after week 1? Essentially, they've played twice now. Is he gonna rest them?
Yeah. So that was literally, I left the press conference, came home, and immediately transcribed this answer because on Saturday we asked him, hey, what are you going to do with the bye week? And he said, I'm not sure of the plan. I have Monday planned out, but I honestly don't know what we're going to do this week. I'm going to have to watch this game. This is Bronco's answer. As I transcribed it, he said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be more conditioning and running, not practicing. Thursday night will appear like a Monday night in a normal game week. It will be your first exposure to the opponent, so Auburn. Friday will look like a Thursday. Saturday and Sunday most likely off. Next Monday will look like a Tuesday. Tuesday will look like a Wednesday, with 2 Thursdays before we go to Auburn, subject to change. I needed to write that out to fully, because when he was saying it, I was like, okay, all right, picking up what you're putting down 100%. Yeah, so there's going to be a little bit of rest here. You're going to have an extra rest day. You're not going to be doing full contact practicing. Going to be some more of a lean on conditioning and meetings and the like. He said that a big part of that is they're going to use this week as a way to kind of address some early injuries that we kind of outlined earlier in the show, particularly in terms of the secondary and what they kind of got going on there, because they certainly got some bodies in the secondary, but you kind of want to you're gonna really need a healthier secondary to kind of get through this upcoming stretch until the next bye week, which I believe is the week of October 5th. I think that is I think that's the Saturday that they'll have off, and then the next one after that is November 23rd. And to kind of rehash, if anybody is curious why the heck they have 3 bye weeks when sometimes you don't even have 2, it's because they didn't schedule they did not schedule a 13th game that they were allotted because of the fact that they play at Hawaii. It's usually a pretty customary thing. It's supposed to help programs make some money back after paying for paying for a trip to Hawaii, which is pretty expensive. But they just didn't do it. They didn't find a fit in terms of the schedule and who had games open and how that was going to play out. So they have 3 bye weeks. But yeah, it sounds like there's going to be some more rest. But I did ask Bronco because I remember Danny last year heading into their bye week. Danny was like, "I'm actually excited to kind of like watch football this Saturday.
Yeah,
like it'll be kind of cool." And I asked Bronco, I was like, "Are you going to have like a little time to, watch football or maybe take like a 20-minute break or something like that?" And he said, we're not at that point now. So not an unsurprising answer at all. So yeah.
I would be a little bit surprised, frankly, if maybe Bronco doesn't watch some football. I'd be shocked if his entire staff isn't watching a little bit of football, even maybe beyond the Auburn game. I don't know if to a man they are of the opinion you never look ahead that far ahead. You just let the video guys do it or whatever. But I'd be a little shocked if they don't keep tabs on maybe some of their upcoming opponents, plural, not just Auburn. So that's what a bye week allows you to do sometimes.
And they also usually you have the team meeting the morning on Monday, and I think they got this Monday. I think they got this Monday morning off because it's Labor Day. He said they were going to have the team meeting later in the day, so a little bit of time there. But yeah,
I'm fascinated by his answer about what they're doing with the bye week, and I'm glad you transcribed it and got it right. I hope you got it right. But yeah, that's an interesting take on how to handle the bye week. I did pull this up just as you were saying that. This is what was going through my mind as Bronco thinking about the bye week. It was the Zach Galifianakis. I don't know whatever this is. Doing
the card game, like the Hangover or whatever, like the
cards, and he's just figuring out the best way to handle a bye week is to make your Wednesday a Thursday and make your Tuesday a next Thursday walkthrough, and then we're gonna have two Wednesdays or 5 Fridays or whatever.
Thursdays. They're only doubling up on Thursdays. Only doubling. Actually, no, they'll have triple Thursdays if we're being honest.
Triple Thursdays. That's Auburn's not going to know what's about to hit them. I wonder how often Auburn prepares for or gets a team that had 3 Thursdays before.
Hugh Freeze, I don't think. I think he's seen double Thursdays before. I don't think he's seen triples. So that's you never know.
All right, gamblers. I know you're watching. I know there's a bunch of gamblers watching and paying attention here, and adjust your spreads accordingly, knowing that the Lobos will have 3 Thursdays to prepare for Auburn over the next week and a half.
2-0 against the spread currently, could move to 3-0 with triple Thursdays in play.
It is worth noting for those that don't care at all about gambling and care about spreads and all that. What point spreads are, if you want to take away the gambling part of it, is a computer algorithm, just like we were just talking. It is a computer prediction based on all the data you can throw in about a team, a coach, a location, all the players, and the probabilities and math and all that kind of stuff. And right now the Lobos are playing better than what the data would have predicted them to do. And they've done it comfortably, frankly. They were a 2-touchdown underdog against a Montana State team on their home field that they led until 10 seconds to go in the game. They were a 30 or 31 point underdog against Arizona on Saturday. And frankly, we're going toe-to-toe with them offensively in the first half shootout. Let the third quarter get away, but did good. They lost by what was the final 22 points. So they've now beat the spread by about 10 points a game, right? And good for them. They're playing better than the computer show. Ultimately, at some point, you quit patting them on the back for those moral victories and expect them to win a little bit. And that's where we are. So, Sean, enjoy your bye week. I hope you have some grapes. And anything else scheduled for this bye week, Sean, that you want to let people know that you got going?
I will have a Bronco press conference story out later today, and a really, 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 really long notebook. Kind of closing the book on Arizona. Yeah, there will be, if you watch the Arizona broadcast, there will be a feature that one guy in particular was mentioned that I would like to have done later this week. But beyond that, kind of a quiet week, and a needed quiet week, if we're going to be honest. Definitely nice to get like a day off. So yeah, but yeah, and I might put out a mailbag call later this week as well, and we can either I might write off that, or we could even just take those questions through one of these through this formatting, I should say. So yeah.
Appreciate you guys for watching. As always, join us anytime we do one of these. You can watch them after the fact as well, even if you're not available with us live. But help out local journalism. You could always subscribe to the Journal. abqjournal.com/subscribe will get you to our subscription page. You can subscribe to our print product, our digital product, or a combination of both. It does help us travel to cover these games, and gives us the resources to bring you all the coverage that the Albuquerque Journal is bringing you. And frankly, there's no other outlet that's going to be able to cover Lobo athletics like the Journal does. And we're grateful for that. And we're lucky. Sean's lucky for that, having an FBS football gig. I'm happy to have a Division I basketball gig where our employers are still devoting the resources to have us travel to cover these games. And it's for you guys. So hopefully you guys can help us out, subscribe to local journalism. And thank you again for watching. Send us, even after the fact, if you want, send us your feedback, send us your comments and suggestions for future shows. We'll try and sneak in a guest every now and then as we move forward. If we can get somebody to join us and ridicule Sean's eating habits, that would be ideal. So
I'm open to it. I certainly am.
Thanks, guys. Until next time. Thanks.
All right. Well, that was our conversation between with me and Geoff Grammer. I hope you enjoyed it. Went in a couple different directions sort of at the end there. But, yeah, we do those shows twice a week right now. We do them after the game itself, whenever, usually 30 to 40, maybe 50 minutes after we're done with press conferences at the game, wherever we are. And then usually after, like we just did this last week, after Broncos weekly press conference, and kind of rehash and kind of talk about some of the things that were said. We might be shuffling that schedule a little bit in terms of the press conference one, but we will be consistently doing the post-game shows. So I encourage you to find us on Twitter, find us on YouTube, or I should say find us on X instead of Twitter. Find us on either, usually 30 to 40 minutes after the game, because we will be discussing the game and everything that kind of happened via those platforms. So, yeah, appreciate you tuning in, appreciate you watching, and we'll be back next week for another episode of Riders Block.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.